Testing.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Calling the meeting of the RTA Organizational Services and Performance Monitoring Committee to order. First order of business, I need to temporarily appoint someone to the committee. If there's no objection, I'd like Mayor Kumar to join us. Do we need a vote?
I will just do the roll call.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Okay.
Ayes have it.
All right. Mayor Biassiata,
Here.
Ms. Moss is virtual, and Mayor Weiss. Ms. Welch is virtual, and Mayor Kumar.
Here.
We have 3 committee members present.
Fantastic, thank you. Today we have 2 topics before the committee. One is an RFP procurement for the competitive negotiated procurement of the contracted portion of our paratransit services. And the second is for the operation and management services related to CNG at our Hayden District fueling station. First up, we're going to talk about our contracted paratransit services, and we're going to have 2 presenters. Nick Davidson, from our paratransit district director, and he'll be followed up by Ashley Bober, our contract administrator. Mr. Davidson, the floor is yours.
Mayor Biassiata, I'm going to introduce the 2. Thank you. Good morning, Mayor Biassiata, Chairman Biassiata, Chairman Lucas, and members of the board. I am Flonse Caver, the Chief Operating Officer for the Greater Cleveland RTA. I'm here to introduce Nick Davidson, our Paratransit District Director, and Ashley Bober, our Contract Administrator for the Paratransit Contracted Services. We're excited to bring to you a discussion about our contracted paratransit services. As many of you are aware, over the last several years, under the leadership of the President and Mr. Davidson, we've done a yeoman's job of upgrading the service related to the paratransit contractors, and look forward to discussing this with you today. Mr. Davidson.
Mayor Biassiata, Reverend Lucas, Ms. Bursong Terry, members of the board. Good morning, and there's nothing I'd like to speak with more this Valentine's morning than paratransit. I'm Nick Davidson, the Paratransit District Director. Paratransit was established with the passing of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. This protected and ensured the rights of persons with disabilities, equal access to public transportation. For persons who are functionally unable to use our fixed route service, we're required to provide complimentary paratransit service. Complimentary service is defined as equivalent day of the week, time, and geographic area as is served by our fixed route. RTA is required to deliver these trips without any denials. To accomplish this work, a little over 50% is provided by in-house employees, and the remainder provided by our purchased transportation, currently amongst 3 vendors. Our 3 vendors combine to deliver almost 20,500 trips each month. This contract that we're proposing today keeps in line with our paratransit priorities of improving our customer service experience, increasing our on-time performance, and reducing our onboard travel times. Currently, we are in option year 1 or year 4 of the current contract. And as Dr. Kaver has stated, while we've made tremendous strides over the past 4 years, they haven't been without challenge. We are still recovering from our COVID pandemic and recovering in ridership. We're currently at 4 days per week, at or above pre-pandemic levels for paratransit. That, combined with the labor market constraints and inflationary factors, have proved challenging under the current contract constraints to provide enough resources to deliver our service. To address this, we went out for a contract to forego option year 2, and 20% of our focus was specifically on the people strategy to address these shortcomings. Successful proposers were required to demonstrate an ability to attract and retain talent, increase beginning wages, and I'm proud to say that all of our vendors will start day 1 of the contract at or above $15 an hour with annual wage increases, and they all have demonstrated a competitive benefits package consistent with or above the market rate. This is a benefit to both RTA and, most importantly, our customers. It will provide an increased pool of potential candidates, an ability to attract employees with a higher customer service skills. It will reduce our risk of capacity strains so that we won't be in this position again. And it will deliver higher on-time performance and reduced onboard travel times. Aside from the people strategy, we wanted to really balance our people strategy with our business performance metrics. In this contract, we'll also have constant audio and video recording, and we'll be able to access those at any point in time. Currently, we have a passive system, meaning that it is triggered by driver behavior, such as speeding, harsh braking, harsh cornering, but it doesn't necessarily always capture the customer service interactions. We wanted an increased transparency and accountability for our service and our customer service expectations. It also aligns liquidated damages to meet our customer service expectations, so the escalation for poor on-time performance, missed runs, and items of those nature escalate quicker than our current contract, and it increases the standard for our customer service expectations. On some of the technical items, we've increased the minimum vehicle accessibility requirements from 50% up to 80%. And aligning with third-party recommendations for liability, we've increased our liability requirements consistent with market factors. We're also standardizing the billing methods for all vendors. Currently, we have 2 separate billing methods with our 3 contracts. As well as our 3 contracts, all 3 have we have 3 different market fuel escalator or de-escalator options. So if the price of the gas is $3.25 versus $4 or $5, each contract has a different market rate currently. This will standardize that across the board and make the mechanics of the billing process smoother. We believe that this contract will provide a better customer service experience, better on-time performance, and reduce onboard travel time. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Ashley Bober for procurement review.
Good morning, Chairperson Biassiata, members of the committee, members of the board, and of course, Reverend Lucas. My name is Ashley Bober. I am the contract administrator for contracted paratransit services. I would like to echo Nick's sentiments and say I love presenting paratransit to you on this Valentine's Day. Okay, so this, thank you, Teresa. Thank you.
I think we're making history today. Will you be my Valentine? And the answer is yes, paratransit.
Thank you, Reverend Lucas. I will happily be yours as well. Okay. So I have been with the authority for about 12 years. In 9 of those years, I have been assigned to the contracted paratransit services contracts. And I can confidently say that in the 9 years that I've been on these contracts, the authority and the contractors have made great strides in so many areas. But in the spirit of continuous process improvement, we are continuing to increase the expectations and the standards that we expect from our contractors. And I really hope that this is evident to you today. So the request for proposal was issued on August 15th of 2022. It was accessed on our website by 50 interested parties. So we had lots and lots of interest in this project, both from national firms and local firms, and 7 firms proposed. The evaluation panel were members of Administration and External Affairs, the Office of Business Development, the Office of Management and Budget, Paratransit, Procurement, and Service Management. Okay, so there's a lot of words on the screen, but what I would like to really convey to you all is that the thoroughness of the scope of services and the thoroughness of this RFP, I hope, is evident in the evaluation criteria on your screen. We wanted to make it clear that we had very high expectations, that we had very high standards, and that we wanted to see quantitative data that has shown that these contractors were successful in other contracts. And of course, we used very important paratransit performance metrics such as missed runs, late pullouts, late passenger pickups, etc. The second criteria item was qualifications and relevant experience, experience working with public transportation agencies, experience working with those with disabilities, the qualifications and the resume of those on staff, that is very, very important. The strength and the stability of the firm is important as well. The cost, I will discuss the cost that we requested a little later in the presentation. As Nick had alluded to earlier, the people strategy and the scalability, the ability to attract and retain staffing levels, including local staff, was very important to RTA. And the capital resources and infrastructure, including the age of the vehicles, the accessibility of the vehicles, fleet size, maintenance program, evidence of a camera system, etc. So I want to briefly explain this slide before I go over our recommendations for contract awards. So this table essentially is we asked for hourly rates based on tiers. And there are 5 tiers from 0% to 100%. And these tiers are based on the percentages of work. So RTA selects the tiers, or we assign the percentages based on the contractor's hourly rates, their capacity, their ability to deliver service and our expectations, and contractor performance. And please know that RTA does have the right to adjust these tiers as needed or necessary. So the first recommended firm is Future Age Incorporated, doing business as Provider-Ride. They are located in Cleveland, Ohio. The 14% DBE goal will be achieved through the use of ACE Taxi Services Incorporated. I am very happy to introduce Mr. Alan Gordell. He is the owner and CEO of Provider-Ride. He is in the audience, and he will be happy to take the podium after our presentation today to provide some more about his company. Alan and his firm have been doing business in some capacity with RTA since 2000, and as our paratransit contractor since 2009. Thank you, Alan. Okay. So the award that we're proposing to Provider-Ride, is an amount not to exceed $17,044,485.35 for a period of 3 years, and in amounts not to exceed $6,243,059.71 and $6,474,672.80 for each option year, respectively, for a total 5-year contract amount not to exceed $29,762,307.86. And again, how we determine these numbers was based on the tier that was selected and our ridership projections for the next 5 years. The second firm is GC Logistics of Mississippi, LLC. They're located in Cleveland, Ohio, and they're headquartered in Ridgeland, Mississippi. The 14% DBE goal will be achieved through the use of We Put Family First, King's Transportation Services, and Better Choice Transport, LLC. We brought GC Logistics of Mississippi on in 2019, and I am very happy to introduce Ms. Cynthia Rasco, the Vice President of Operations for GC Logistics. We also have Tom McDonald, Caleb and Mike, the team from Ridgeland, Mississippi. They are on the phone virtually, and they will be happy to speak as well. I also have Mr. Walter Collins, and I do want to give you this fun fact that he was a RTA employee for 12 years. He was a paratransit driver for 9 and a service quality monitor for 3. So, and I'm sure he'll be happy to say a few words later, yeah. Right, yeah. He's like, who are you? Okay. So the award that we're recommending to GC Logistics is an amount not to exceed $11,106,075.91 for a period of 3 years, and in amounts not to exceed $3,912,322.56 and $4,016,054.09 for each option year, respectively, for a total 5-year contract amount not to exceed $19,034,452.56. And again, the same process, the tier we assigned plus the ridership projections is how we came up with these numbers. And the third recommended firm is Senior Transportation Connection, located here in Cleveland, Ohio. The 14% DBE goal will be achieved through the use of We Put Family First. I am very happy to introduce Ms. Laura Kleinman. She is the Executive Director of Senior Transportation Connection. Hi, Laura. And they have been doing business with RTA in some capacity since 2008. Okay. We are recommending for award an amount not to exceed $5,400,370.89 for a period of 3 years, and in amounts not to exceed $1,916,788.07 and $1,978,398.27 for each option year, respectively, for a total 5-year contract amount not to exceed $9,295,557.23. And this is just really a summarized table of what I presented in the last slides. The contractor, the percentage of the work that was assigned, and the total contract value. So at this point, Future Age Incorporated, doing business as provider ride, is being assigned 51% of the work at that contract value. GC Logistics at 33% of the work at that contract value. And lastly, Senior Transportation Connection at 16% of the work assigned. Again, these assignments are fluid. They are subject to change at any time. Okay. Staff requests that the Organizational Services and Performance Monitoring Committee recommend to the Board of Trustees the awards for contracted paratransit services to Future Age Incorporated, doing business as provider ride, in a total contract amount not to exceed $29,762,307.86, to GC Logistics of Mississippi, LLC, in a contract amount not to exceed $19,034,452.56, and to Senior Transportation Connection in a total contract amount not to exceed $9,295,557.23, resulting in a 5-year total amount not to exceed $58,092,317.65. This compares to the 5-year total amount not to exceed $54,244,140.16 awarded under the 2019 contract. So there's about a $4 million difference. Nick, myself, or our contractors will be happy to answer any questions.
We go back to the last slide.
Sure.
So the contracted service portion of the paratransit, about 50% currently, and the other 50% we do in-house. The slide, it was in the slide.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Do we anticipate that percentage or slash scope of work to be consistent over the next 5-year period? What I'm trying to ascertain is the price differential if it's an apple to apple or if the contracted portion is going to grow.
We will complete as much service in-house as possible first, and then utilize our contracts. Currently, those are the percentages over the life of this current contract. I would anticipate a similar percentage that may vary based on ridership demand over the next 5 years.
You're not seeing any trends. You're saying, in your opinion, you anticipate it'll be about the same.
Approximately the same, yes, sir.
Very good. And if we go to the last slide, we're talking about $4 million over the 5 years. Is that this one right here? $58 million for the last 5-year total compared to the new. I'm sorry, for the new 5-year total compared to the $54 million of the old 5-year total. Does that ramp up over the 5 years? So how are we looking from 2023 to 2024?
Sure.
So is it a couple percent each year that get us there, or?
So yes, the 58 million will total the 5 years. It is increased each year. Each contractor will have a percentage increase each year to account for inflation, labor, wages, et cetera. So that is the total. That 54 million in the last contract was pre-pandemic estimation. We didn't hit that, but based off our did some pretty thorough analysis of our ridership and what we anticipate over the next 5 years, and we believe that 58 million is accurate. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, for the most part, what I'm trying to see is ultimately what I'm getting to is the impact to our current budget. What from where we're at now to the first year of this new contract, what kind of percentage are we talking? You say it's mostly like CPI related things, cost of living, so 3-4%.
So currently we're at about 9.6 million per year. Year one of this contract will be about 10.5. So there is a 10% increase initial, and then it increases 3 to 4% each year.
Okay, that's actually very close, not exact, but very close to some contracts I've been negotiating with the city. So I'm comfortable with those percentages. That's what I was trying to get to. I'm going to open it up now for any questions from my fellow committee members.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not on your exact committee. Since the people are here from the various agencies and ownerships, I'd like to give them the opportunity to have a word.
Certainly.
Ashley, you want to introduce them?
Yes, we'll start with Mr. Alan Gordell. He is the owner and CEO of Provider Ride. Podium is yours, sir.
Good morning,
Morning.
Reverend Lucas and board. I'm the owner of Provider Ride. The business has been operating for 34 years. We've been working with RTA for a little over 20 years. Quite a bit has changed in our work with RTA. We've worked for 3 different district managers, each one strong. What the board and Nick has accomplished under this last contract is significant improvements. We were challenged nearly 4 years ago to up our game, And with the help of RTA and our own internal steps, we believe we did so. I think that you're well represented with your management team and contractors. It's a little unique to see that the same 3 contractors were selected that are currently working for you. I suspect that there were 7 companies that bid, and in the end, you came to the conclusion that we're being well managed and we're doing a good job. I think that it was well detailed in this RFP that what we're doing today doesn't stand. More is expected, and the RFP was written that way. And it impacts our operations and our costs, and I believe that our company in particular is up to that task. And I'm available for any questions anyone might have.
Good to see you, Alan. We're very proud of what's going on for your company. Enjoy working with you and look forward to new ventures, the new contract.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity.
I'd like to hear from all the speakers, and then we'll come back for questions.
We'll start next with Ms. Cynthia Rasco, Vice President of Operations for GC Logistics of Mississippi. And again, we have their leadership team from Ridgeland, Mississippi on the phone as well.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cynthia Rasco. I am the Vice President for GC Logistics out of Mississippi. I have been in this industry a little bit over 21 years. Our company has been doing transportation since 1987. It's been a true pleasure working on this contract with Reverend Lucas and everyone, especially since Nick took over as the district director. He has actually challenged our company even more, but it's been great. We enjoy being here. We enjoy being part of the community. As you can see, we have promoted local people that have actually joined our company, which we continue to do so. We have 2 QA auditors that were unable to be here today, but they're working very hard to ensure that our staff is doing what they need to do on a daily basis. We look forward to the next 3+ years of being here, and we're just happy. So thank you.
Any other presenters today?
Hey, Tom, did you want to say anything on the phone?
No, I appreciate the opportunity.
Hi, Tom. There's that Southern charm.
Cynthia is
Okay, thank you, Tom. And lastly, we have Ms. Laura Kleinman from Senior Transportation Connection. She's the Executive Director.
Thank you, Ashley. Good morning, everyone, committee members. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. We're thrilled to be working with RTA again. I feel like we're the new kid on the block, compared to the other vendors, but we're certainly not completely new. We've been around for about 18 years now as a nonprofit organization started by Cuyahoga County, RTA, other providers recognizing the need for coordinated, comprehensive, affordable, accessible transportation throughout Cuyahoga County. We've been working with RTA since 2008, and we are, again, very pleased to be able to, and given the opportunity to work with RTA again. It has been challenging over these last few years, but I know we're very committed to putting RTA really first and making it a priority with the service that we provide. So open to questions, and thanks again for the opportunity to be here.
Okay.
Thank you. So I would be remiss if I didn't introduce Mr. Walter Collins.
I just appreciate the opportunity. You would think it would be an easy transition to this position, being a former driver for paratransit, but as stated before, a lot has changed. It was paper manifest back when I used to drive, so a lot of things have changed, but I think it's changed for the best. It puts us in a better situation to serve the community in more, advanced ways, the way the world is changing. And I'm just happy to be a part of it and look to grow stronger here in Cleveland. Thank you.
That conclude our speakers? Yes. Very good. Mayor David, you got a question?
Yes, if I just want to make sure I'm kind of following the process that we went through. So we have a split between internal services and then services we contract out. So the split that we saw, the 51%, 33, 16, that's of just the outsourced purchased services, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then could you go back to the tiered, the slide that shows the tiers? So can you just walk me through, when we say the tiers, that's the percentage
So
of all, ultimately of all three that add up to the 100% of what we're contracting for? Is that?
yes, Mr. Mayor. What we wanted to do is we recognize that our contractors would like more work. So this allowed them to bid different price points depending on the amount of work that they are awarded at that time. So in a 0 to 20%, if they have 0 to 20% of the work, they may have a price point. And as their percentage of work increases, they have an opportunity to reduce the price and incentivize and compete for additional work. So we have different price points, and based on how that's awarded and assigned, determines that price point.
And that could change over the life of the contract, is what you're is.
Depending on capacity, performance, we can adjust those percentages as necessary.
Okay. Okay, so actual price points could then vary not only within a provider, but among the providers based on utilization?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. Just trying to get my arms around how the math worked here.
If I may?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to say thank you for all of you being here. I remember meeting with several of you upon onboarding here in 2019, so it's good to see your faces again, especially understanding that you have, excuse me, promoted from within RTA. That's a special thing, so we wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to speak to us today. Just if I could ask Nick and or Doc to be able to give a really quick synopsis of where we are as far as service to the customer. I think that some of the questions might be coming from a little bit of educational opportunity to understand how and why we rely on third-party service providers to make sure that we can provide adequate service to the community, because paratransit is a little bit of a different animal when it comes to public transit. And the way that we're actually structured through the paratransit division is a little bit of an anomaly. It's the same in other agencies throughout the country, but a lot of times we cannot handle the full load internally, especially due to workforce and that kind of thing. So having these kind of relationships with these providers is imperative to us being able to put vans and buses out on the street for those that need our assistance. So Doc, if you could give a quick synopsis of why we actually come to the board with this presentation, that would be helpful.
Thank you. Again, Chairman Biassiata, President Lucas, Ms. Terry, my name is Florence Caver, the Chief Operating Officer at RTA. So the way that paratransit works is that we have approximately 80 vehicles within our service that fit in the paratransit facility on about 40th and Euclid. When we schedule the trips with a software which optimizes which trips go where, because we're going directly to individuals' homes. So it's kind of like MapQuest on steroids. In this system, we actually have weights or priorities. When we schedule a trip, we prioritize that the system will create an optimal trip that gives the trip to RTA first. And so during when we were in COVID, we made sure that the RTA drivers were utilized the most. And so when Nick said that we didn't use all of the money, we surely didn't have all of the customers, but we prioritized that it would try to give the trip to RTA first. But we have more riders than our current in-house capacity. And so throughout the time of paratransit, we've always utilized and had partnerships with outside contracted services. We work through those contracted services to ensure that the trips that they provide meet our criteria. And so Nick had our paratransit priorities. We want the trips to be on time. We want the trips to reduce the wait time for individuals, as well as reduce the on-board time. And so those are the key characteristics of a good trip for a paratransit person. So when we talk about and when we haven't done well in previous times, it was when we were having unoptimal trips that were taking people, their experience would be that they rode all the way across town to come back across town. And so this system every day at 5 o'clock will optimize all of the trips. And then throughout the day, it will optimize and what we call rebatch the trips. So let's say someone is not at their trip, but that vehicle is free. It will run every half an hour to optimize those trips. And it will slide the trips between our service and the paratransit contractor services because we know where they are and what they have to do also. And so as a partner, we provide first. We prioritize the providing of our in-house labor, and then the items that are not there are provided by our contracting colleagues.
Thanks, Doc. And just to add before you leave the podium, there are several models of operating paratransit across the country. And this is just as info, so you understand what's coming in front of you for approval. Some agencies take on paratransit holistically. It's very few at this point. Most have a hybrid model where we operate with third-party providers, and we also have in-house, especially due to unionized workforce, such as we have here. And then other models are totally outsourced. Where you have a third party that takes over the entirety of paratransit. That is not our goal here in RTA. So I just want to make that absolutely clear as well, because sometimes when you have a split model, there's always this question, as you mentioned, Mayor Biassiata, what's the split? And then also, what's the future of keeping the work in-house or being able to actually outsource fully? Our goal here is to always absorb as much as we can in-house. However, at times, most times, our need and our demand overshadows what we can actually handle. So I'm proud to say that Nick and team have definitely made sure that we have as much work as we can handle in-house with our unionized men and women. However, we need to make sure that we can continually put that service out on the road. So these third-party providers provide that flexibility for us. And then Doc also mentioned the time on the road. There's an FTA, a Federal Transit Administration rule, so to speak, as far as the time that you have to be on board a paratransit vehicle. We never want to exceed that time limit. So when we have gotten into the optimization of scheduling, it assists with us making sure that we're not getting into finding territory when we're audited by those FTA providers that provide us funding to be able to put this service out on the road. We want to make sure that we can make people's lives easier, that we're not keeping them for an exacerbated amount of time on the van, that we can get them where they need to be, and also understand that it's a shared and public service. So these providers help us do that as well. So I just wanted to put that out there so you have a better understanding holistically of why we're coming to you with this contract and what it means to the team. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I had a word when Alan was here. Let me say to all of the providers, starting again with Alan, as we worked very closely, pulling things together, and I've appreciated the cooperation that I received. And then I had a standing joke with the group of Mississippi that if they did not comply, they had to fly me to Mississippi and meet with them there. But they've done an excellent job, and we're very proud of what's going on there. And then senior, I certainly on behalf of all of us who ride every day like myself, the senior vehicles were not providing a good place for handicapped in wheelchairs to ride, but they now, with all of their new vehicles and the other things that they did, so I'm kind of behind this. Come around so I can see you a minute. There you go. Now, you know, I'd say You're like my daughter. I always have to look at her when I'm talking about it. But I want to thank you for the work that you've done with the senior vehicles on behalf of all of us in wheelchairs now that we load both from the front and from the side. So I wanted to add that.
Any questions from fellow board members? Open it up to the whole board at this time. You good, Mayor Kumar? Do we have a question from the audience? Fire away. Please approach the podium. Please direct question to me.
Good morning, everybody, especially our chair here. My question is, we know paratransit is actually the lifeline of the lifelines in the public transit, this field. However, the riders have been experiencing lots of experiences not particularly pleasant from certain contractors. And this is the reason why we would like to know if there's any other organization, maybe we can reach out and to let them also answer our RFPs. If we do need 2 or 3 or even a different number of contractors, because lots of times GCRTA has a standards to go to all the drivers so they all know what to do and they all do it well. But unfortunately, when rider gets the ride from the contractors, the service quality lots of time not the same. If it actually better than the GCRTA, we appreciate, no problem. But if it's not even up to GCRTA standards, and sometimes it's very difficult to make the complaint because lots of incidents happen during the night, during weekends. We cannot really call in or whatever to reflect the situation in time. Even we do have transit police, they are not handling the service issues. So riders still need help, especially paratransit riders. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, there were 7 different proposals that were evaluated, and these 3 were determined to be the best. And you may have missed the beginning of the meeting. We're not looking for the standard quo here. We're looking for objectively measured higher results than what we've been seeing in the past. And early in the committee, I think we briefly spoke to that. So I'm comfortable with the assumption that the status quo is not acceptable, that the performance is going to improve over the time of this contract. I'm comfortable that we've had a variety of proposals. I'm comfortable that we're forecasting no change to the current mix, which is about 50-50, and that the pricing is commensurate with what I'm seeing in other contracts. So if there's not any other questions from the board, and there's no division of the question, I'm going to move that we approve the resolutions through this committee for Future Age, Inc., DBA Provider Ride, GC Logistics of Mississippi, LLC, and Senior Transportation Connection. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to move on to our second topic this evening in my committee, and that's for the CNG services at Hayden District Fueling Station. Doctor, are you going to introduce the people like you did the first time, or?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Biassiata, Chairman Lucas, members of the board. My name is Flauncey Caver. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Greater Cleveland RTA. It's my pleasure to introduce to you John Toher, who's the Director of Accounting, and Sean Becker, the Program Manager for the CNG services. As many of you are aware, we use compressed natural gas. We compress the gas here on site from natural gas coming through the pipelines in order to fuel our CNG buses. This contract is particular for the Hayden Bus Garage in East Cleveland. It is a bus garage that is now currently 100% compressed natural gas. As a part of the program, we are going to recommend award to Trillium. Trillium is the organization who built the compression farm there and continues to provide the operations and maintenance of the system. And so I have the pleasure, currently, it is my pleasure to introduce John Toher.
Thank you, Doc. Good morning, Mayor Biassiata, members of the committee, members of the board. As Doc said, my name is John Toher, I'm Director of Accounting. I'll be providing you an overview of the Hayden District CNG Operations and Maintenance Project, while Sean Becker will be presenting the procurement overview for this project. We do not procure compressed natural gas, we manufacture it. And by compressing natural gas within our facilities, we're manufacturing it to fuel our buses, and it's three components. The three components are, the first one is natural gas, and that is both the delivery and cost of the commodity. And that amounted to, for 2022, $1,437,000. The second piece for the compressed natural gas is the electricity, and that runs the compressors that compresses the natural gas. And with that totaled for 2022, $142,000. And then the final piece is the operations and maintenance, which is this procurement, and that's to maintain the facility and equipment, and that for 2022 amounted to $426,000. So the total to manufacture and fuel our CNG buses at the Hayden District was approximately $2 million for 2022. At this time, I also wanted to show the authorities the average cost per CNG diesel gallon equivalent, and that averaged 94 cents a gallon, and there is an alternative fuel tax, and that brought that price down to 38 cents a gallon. That alternative fuel credit is not automatic, but it has been continued and extended by the U.S. Congress and the President of the United States. In comparison to this, the 2022 diesel fuel prices averaged about $3.79 a gallon. And that was ranging from a low of $2.31 a gallon to a high of $5.34 a gallon. And even after the authorities' fuel hedging program, the price per gallon was reduced to $2.20. And that is still significantly higher than the 38 cents a gallon it costs us for the CNG buses. This picture here shows the Hayden CNG facility. On your left is the fuel islands and pumps. In the center is the compressors, and on the right is the computer system for the statistics and troubleshooting the issues, or any issues. This procurement, like I said, is for the operation and maintenance function of the Hayden CNG facilities. This is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week monitoring support services. It's got emergency callouts, they schedule the maintenance and emergency repairs, and it will be inclusive of all labor, parts, and consumables. As Doc said, the current Hayden facility is all CNG. This began in 2015 when they began displacing those diesel buses with the CNG buses. The current fleet at Hayden is comprised of 155 40-foot coaches and 60 16-foot Healthline coaches. And those 40-foot coaches were driven approximately 7.7 million miles in 2022, and the 60-footers were driven approximately 422 miles in that year. So this O&M contract is critical to the Hayden District since the CNG fueling station must be maintained and available 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, just like the Hayden District. Any disruption in the CNG fueling would result in a catastrophic impact on service. The Hayden District would not be able to pull out. So how do we project those O&M costs? O&M costs are basically are based on the anticipated combined mileage of both the 40-footer and the 60-foot coaches, the estimated miles per MCF for both those coaches, and then the calculated diesel fuel equivalent, which is projected for 2023 between 2.1 and 2.2 million gallons. So the monthly O&M cost equals the rate of this contract times the DGU volume. Now I'll turn it over to Sean Becker, and he can talk about the procurement side.
Thanks, John. Good morning, Mayor Biassiata, committee members, and members of the board. I'm Sean Becker. I'm the Program Contract Manager in Procurement, and I was responsible for this procurement. So this is a sole source with Trillium Transportation Fuels LLC, doing business as Trillium CNG. And as Doc mentioned, they were the original installers of this system. So per Ohio Revised Code, Section 30643, there are two provisions that deem this exempt from competitive solicitation, and that includes they are the original manufacturer and provider of O&M service, as well as the program logic controller, PLC, is proprietary to that system. So there would be significant investment if we were to deviate to another vendor. So procurement requested a proposal on December 29th, 2022. The proposal was received on January 31st, 2023. A 0% DBE goal was assigned to this project, and the proposal was reviewed by members of accounting, operations, and procurement. So Trillium's experience, they are a leader in CNG station construction and fuel distribution in North America. They have extensive work with public transit agencies across North America, and they operate and maintain over 220 CNG fueling stations in over 30 states. And also, they invest over $40,000 in training for each mechanic. So this actually ultimately benefits the RTA. So we have experienced people working on the system. They have extensive experience, O&M teams across more than 80% of the US, so we're not going to have to wait days for them to come out if something would occur, so they're readily available. And they have no preventable service interruptions to date, so it's critical that we have fuel for our buses so we can maintain the service. So this is a critical piece here, so both the ability of them to get here fast and the history that we have with them with no preventable service interruptions. So the firm's transit experience, GCRTA, Akron Metro, Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, Miami-Dade Transit, New York City Transit, PACE, and Los Angeles Department of Transportation, among many others. So right here shows a little history about the pricing that we have. So that box that I have around the last three is the proposed contract that we're recommending to the board. That first box for year three of the original contract, was 3 years it was included in the construction back in 2015 when this went into service. We were looking at about 20.5 cents per diesel gallon equivalent. We actually anticipated that to go up. However, we negotiated this current contract that we're in right now, which is expiring. We actually got it to 18 cents per diesel gallon equivalent. And then that went up to the final year where we are right now to 21.2 cents. All these years are the subsequent years are adjusted for CPI. And then we were actually able to negotiate the first year to hold that pricing. So we're maintaining the current pricing for our first year. And then that's going to jump up to 24.2 cents in years 2. And then 3 through 5, we are maintaining 26.2 cents. You'll notice it's a little bit of a jump, but that's to account for some major upgrades that are going to take place to keep this facility up and running and are keeping our buses on the service. So we were actually able to negotiate that year 2 down a little bit from it was originally proposed 26.2 cents for the whole contract. So we were able to do a little bit of negotiation with this. So our recommendation, so staff requests that the Organizational Services and Performance Monitoring Committee recommend an award to Trillium Transportation Fuels LLC, doing business as Trillium CNG, to provide Hayden CNG operations and maintenance services in amount not to exceed $3.2 million for the 5-year term. And at this point, we'll be happy to entertain any questions or comments you may have.
Any questions from the board? Open up to everyone. Mr. Joyce?
Yeah, Sean, and I think you were getting there on the 2025 to 28 pricing. So just not knowing the shelf life of these fueling stations, is that what Trillium's telling us after 10 years you're going to need capital upgrades and that?
Yeah, and they have a kind of a scheduled service, like what is done in the intervals that it's done. So they have several things that are done weekly, several things that are done monthly, biannually, and then they get into the 2-year mark and then the 6-year mark. So they really lay out down the road what's going to be needed, but it's all included in these rates.
I'll bake them.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mayor?
Question, does the RTA actually own the facilities and Trillium operates them, or do they actually retain ownership of the system?
Yeah, so they basically built the system for us. We own it, and then they maintain it. So we do own it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's part of the proprietary nature why we're re-upping with this firm.
Yeah, if we-
Any other questions?
Just go back to that, one of the beginning slides, just go over the DGE calculation again, if you could.
Which, this slide?
I think, or maybe it was the one after that, I'm not, maybe not.
So this one?
Yeah, so that, the calculated diesel gallon equivalent, how is that, how do you calculate that again? I'm just trying to understand the math.
Yeah, so basically we get MCF, so 1,000 cubic feet for the natural gas, and then there is a calculation which our energy manager, Natalie Ulrich, who isn't here today, calculates. So she basically gets the MCF and does the calculation herself. And actually this year in the contract, we're including an example to kind of work off of. So down the road, if somebody else was to come and take this, they'd be able to easily see, okay, we take the MCF and then do the calculation. I do have an example of that right here.
Hey, Sean, while you're looking for it, so Mayor, this is Flouncek Caver. The natural gas is sold in MCFs, and so there is a industry-wide conversion of that to be a diesel gallon equivalent as opposed. And so they use the industry description of how the volume comes through in MCFs to make it related to a diesel pump, and so it makes it easier for people to understand it. But if we're at our homes, it's sold in MCFs.
Yeah, and by no means am I the technical expert on calculating this. However, I do have that. So it's the MCF times 10 divided by 1.25 times 0.887, and that equates to the diesel gallon equivalent.
But you're just saying this is an industry standard that's used and we follow?
Yes.
Yep.
I used to calculate it, Sean.
We also do have our Triscuit facility actually has Trillium operating their CNG facility as well. And as was previously mentioned, Hayden is now 100% diesel compressed CNG. So that's why you'll see a little bit of an increase in that not to exceed amount, both with inflation and a full CNG facility right now. So.
Any other questions? Very good. Therefore, I move to approve the contract with Trillium Transport Fuels LLC, DBA Trillium CNG, to provide the Hayden CNG operation maintenance service for a 5-year period, an amount not to exceed $3.2 million. Do I have a second?
Second. Mayor Weiss?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Is there any other business for my committee before we adjourn? Okay, I'm going to adjourn them at 10:01. All in favor? Aye. Do I need to ask for a motion? I move to adjourn the meeting at 10:01. I have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you.
Good morning, Reverend Lucas, to the board, General Manager Bursong Terry. I'm here just to provide a bit of context on one of the items that Dawn will present when she talks about the code book.
Miss Walker, he has to start the meeting first.
Sorry.
Walker Minor, Dr. Walker Minor.
Call the meeting to order. Ask the secretary to read the roll, please.
Okay, President Lucas.
Present.
Ms. Moss is virtual. Mayor Biassiata.
Here.
Mr. Joyce.
Here.
Mayor Kumar.
Here.
Ms. McCall. Here. Ms. Peo.
Here.
Mayor Weiss.
Here.
And Ms. Welch is also virtual, so we have 7 committee members present.
All right. Now, are you wearing red for Valentine's Day? And
I am wearing red for Valentine's Day.
all right.
Share kindness.
Thank you. Since I know your husband, I won't ask you to be my Valentine.
Thank you. And I apologize for jumping out there. Good morning, Pastor Lucas, to the board, General Manager Terry. I am here to provide a bit of context on Section 222.04 before Don Tarka speaks. Last month, I shared that we had been meeting with Board Member McCall to restructure the Community Advisory Committee. Today, I want to share a bit more information as to what has occurred in the last 6 weeks. When we met with Board Member McCall, we talked about strategies to restructure the Community Advisory Committee to make it more re-energized for the voice of the customer and to be mindful of the customer experience. The restructure involved 2 primary tasks. The first was identification of a new staff liaison. The second was to review Section 222.04 of the Code Book, the section that outlines the Community Advisory Council, CAC. The first item, identification of a new staff liaison. I want to publicly thank Jose Feliciano for 7 years of service as the board liaison for the Community Advisory Committee. I also want to formally introduce Albert Johnson, AJ, as the new staff liaison for the CAC. The second item, review of Section 222.04. As we have reviewed the section, we have made proposal for a few items. At this time, I'll introduce Don Tarka to provide the proposed amendments. Thank you.
If I may, while Don is approaching the podium through the chair, we wanted to make sure that we gave additional information on this particular subject so that we were able to go through the revisions that are being proposed to the board while we have the guidance of our liaison, Ms. Valerie McCall. It's really important to make sure that we do that, and we're all in agreement on that because of the historical nature of the CAC and understanding where we kind of came from so that we can also appreciate where we're going. So at the conclusion of Dawn's introduction of the code for this particular section, I would ask Ms. McCall to be able to lend a couple of minutes or however long you wish to be able to talk through this a little bit so that the board has a holistic view of our proposed changes. Thanks.
Good morning, Reverend Lucas, members of the board. I'm Dawn Tarka, an attorney in the legal department. I will skip through the very beginning part of my presentation and go right to the Community Advisory Committee. And just a heads up, the work on this provision went until or past 5 p.m. yesterday. So we've made additional revisions that you will not see in the red lines that are included in your board packets. The final red lines that we attach to the resolution will look different from what you have, but we're capturing all of the changes in the presentation that I'm making right now. So we're recommending amendments to Section 222.04. We're proposing to streamline the subcommittee structure, to create a rules subcommittee for review of the operating guidelines. That's the only function that the rules subcommittee would have, is to review the operating guidelines on an annual basis. Additional recommendations are to reduce the number of members from 20 to 11 to 15, and to reduce the terms from 3 years to 2 years with a maximum of 2 terms. There's also language to clarify the provision regarding emeritus status and to add a requirement for Cuyahoga County residents. Thank you.
All right. Ms. McCall?
Sure. As you all know, the CAC has been something that I think at least once every couple board meetings, someone stands up and talks to us about when are we going to revamp the CAC, when are we going to reconstitute the CAC. During last month's meeting, I know that the team here previewed it to let you know that we were working on it. I had been asked and actually tasked by Chairman Lucas to work with the team to really look at this and do a deeper dive, and we did look at that. And, you know, I want to commend also Jose for the years he spent on this. I remember when I first came on the board, the way that CAC memberships were appointed was each board member got to appoint 2 people to the CAC. And you really didn't you didn't really appoint them. You were just told these are your CAC representatives. And while we had a board liaison, we really wasn't really as connected as we should be. So one of the things that when we were talking, Dr. Walker Minor, CEO Birdsong, and Mr. AJ and myself, was how do we ensure that this is operating back in a way where as CAC, they are ambassadors of RTA, they're out in the community, let's make this special. The good thing about it is we had just gone through the process for the COC. And so there's an application process that will go out. It's going to be similar, is actually synonymous to what they just did on the COC. So there will be an application process. There will be a website. So we're going to model it after what we just did for COC, sort of, kind of, recognizing that the duties are slightly different, but doing it in a way that brings professionalism to it and letting our members know who will serve on this that we appreciate them. In addition, one of the things that I was really concerned about, but we already had a provision for it, and that's why I think you heard Don say clarify, and I believe Dr. Maya Walker also talked about, is the emeritus status. We have people who have served on here, some in particular, one in particular who've been on here, oh my goodness, I think the whole time we've had a CAC. And so we don't want to lose that expertise. So while it looks like we're reducing the numbers of the membership, we had a lot of conversation around this, we're technically not really reducing it. It actually, as members move up to emeritus status means you can still come to the meetings, you still have a voice, you're still active. And so we want to make room for the emeritus status without turning it into a board of 50 people. So that's why you see us reduce the numbers of the actual members, but make room for the emeritus status. And at the time that we bring the resolution before the board, there are already 4 members in emeritus. There's 1 person who qualifies. But to be clear, we just want to make sure that they all have that designated emeritus status. So once you seat the first COC, there will be 5 emeritus members that we'll bring forth. 1 in particular to say, please, let's acknowledge them as emeritus status. So I do want to just say that while I think we were on the phone as late as 3:30 yesterday, I think Teresa, India, and Natoya I think we were looking at each other and going back and forth around 1 o'clock. And I just want to highlight how much a lot of work went into this. I know board member Moss is on the line. She's here virtually. And I know she had a lot of questions in particular around this when we were doing our work group session around wanting to know what we were doing with the CAC. So I'm just going to encourage all the board members that between now and when we come before the full board, please look through the draft of how the code is redlined. If you have questions, by all means, reach out to either myself, India, Dr. Walker Minor, or AJ, and just really let us know if you have any concerns. We went back and forth on this, reducing from 3 years to 2 years. I'm not a big proponent on reducing the number of terms, but we want to be respectful of the fact that these are our volunteers. We don't want to wear them out. So we want to be mindful of that. We want to make sure we have staggered terms similar to like the board term is too, so we can just rotate on and off. But there's nothing precluding the board from saying, because my question was, we do get very active board members. We probably have great candidates who are either on this phone at every meeting or sitting in this audience at every meeting. And what if we get a good member and we want to keep them? There's nothing from precluding the board from taking action and saying, we can extend this particular person's term. And so that was one of the questions that we asked. And so again, I just want to commend the team for their hard work putting all of this together. Thank the staff who, oversaw this moving forward. And Mr. Chair, I know you're going to appoint a dynamic person to be the board liaison on this moving forward.
Thank you very much. AJ, you have something to say?
Yes, so good morning, members of the board, President Lucas, and this India Birdstone Terry. So thank you for appointing me as your staff liaison to this committee, and just want to walk you through a couple other things that we have done in the past 6 weeks here. So in addition, here is a snapshot of the application process as well as the website that with approval, it'll be launched and we'll go out and start recruiting new members to join this CAC. So we wanted to also talk about the revised committee, the subcommittee format. We have 3 subcommittees: the ADA subcommittee, the Advocacy and Education subcommittee, as well as the Rules Subcommittee. We want to revamp these committees to give it more of a voice and more of a streamlined process for individuals in our community to speak out in these subcommittees. So these are a couple of things that have been happening in the past 6 weeks, and more will continue on. Thank you.
All right. Jonathan, you have anything to add? No. You're on another thing. I know he's on another, but I didn't know he had anything on this. All right.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you again, Dr. McCall.
Well, thank you. And Mr. Chair, I do believe we need a motion, if I'm not mistaken, to move this to the full board. Is that accurate?
Yeah,
We don't need it? We don't need that for this?
We've got 2 other items under the code book, and then if we can make
Okay,
them all.
okay, perfect,
yeah,
perfect.
they're all one at a time.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
All right. Continue on.
The second code book provision that I'm going to discuss today relates to political activity. We are recommending removing Section 640.03, political activity, from the code book. And the reason is because it is an exact duplicate of Personnel Policy 100.03. So it exists in 2 places. We're recommending removing it from the code book and retaining it in the personnel policy. And then we updated this provision, which was quite old, and in the interim between the time it was last reviewed and today, the federal law governing political activity by recipients of federal funds has changed. And so we're recommending that we update our personnel policy to correspond with that change in the federal law. And the primary difference is previously authority employees were prohibited from being a candidate in a election, in a partisan election, being a candidate for office. That distinction has been removed from the federal law, and therefore the proposal is to also remove that distinction from our policy. The recommendation is that staff requests that the Committee of the Whole recommend these 2 provisions to the Board of Trustees for approval. Are there any questions?
Questions, yes, Ms. Call?
Sure. Just one quick question, Dawn. I know that we're making the edits so we match the federal provisions because of the federal funding. And I know we don't get a lot of state funding, but what I want to make sure of is how does this relate to state of Ohio? So Ohio Ethics Commission and the Ohio Revised Code as it pertains to political activity, because we don't have classified employees here, do we?
That's correct. Thank you very much for the question. I did research Ohio law, and I confirmed that there is nothing in the Ohio law that prohibits an authority employee from being a candidate in a partisan election for office.
And just one follow-up, and I want to use an example. So, for example, say Teresa runs for mayor of Shaker Heights. I'm just playing mayor. I'm just joking. But let's just say there's an employee and they actually run for, mayor of their city. They can serve, they can run, as long as it's, they can run, they can serve, and there won't be any violation of them serving in both capacities?
Well, now that's a separate question.
Okay.
Because the ethics law does have guidelines about what is compatible and what is incompatible employment.
Okay.
So that's not covered in this provision,
Right.
but that certainly is covered under the Ohio ethics law. And if the board wanted to include that in RTA's ethics code, that could be considered.
Right, and the reason why I asked that question is because we're moving it from the code, which I agree with if it's in a personnel manual, but we also, if I read this right, removed the section that talks about the GM can review if there's something that's of conflict. We removed that section, so we may want to, if we're putting it in the personnel code, you probably don't want the personnel code to be silent on it's the employee's responsibility to check with Ohio ethics or whatever that would be. So I'm not trying to wordsmith on the fly, but if it goes in as written right now, it doesn't say that, so we may just want to make some provision for that.
thank you for that recommendation. We can certainly make that revision before the provision is presented in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. What's his name? All right. Now,
I believe, was there a request for a motion and a second to move the first two? Or they're going to do all three of them? Okay.
Yes, I just have one quick code book provision. Good morning, Reverend Lucas, members of the board. My name is Jonathan McGorry, Associate Counsel in the Legal Department. My 5-year-old daughter is going to be my Valentine today, if her cousin's not available. So, section.
what's on your foot?
Oh, that's my wife made me these. It's my daughter on my sock with some hearts. A little shout out to Edie this morning.
Well, Valentine's Day got us going.
So the reason you're seeing me, not Don, is the legal department has a full slate of code book provisions that we'll be reviewing and bringing forth over the next year. And the legal department decided to split up the work, share the wealth amongst the various attorneys who have expertise in the areas that they'd be covering in the code book. And give the board an opportunity to meet some of the other attorneys, newer attorneys in the legal department. So this section, 465, covers financial assistance and the ability of the general manager to apply and accept grants and other financial assistance from federal, state, and local agencies. This section does not need any substantial updates. So all that we are updating in this section is the title of the general manager and some code sections in the United States Code and the code book that just need updating. Some titles have been updated, some section numbers in the code book have been updated. So there are no substantial or substantive changes, and we recommend that the committee of the whole recommend these code book changes to the Board of Trustees for approval, and I will take any questions.
All right, questions? Questions?
No questions, but a quick comment to just say thank you for showing your lovely socks. I believe that you've now challenged our board chair, who is the king of the sock game, so we appreciate that.
All right.
He's new to the podium, but this is also a thank you to the departments for kind of rotating the speakers as well, so that we get a chance to be able to see some new faces that are working on some of the items. Oh my goodness!
Oh, I see him.
Now we've got Reverend Lucas, who now is donning a lovely navy suit adorned by glasses as well as socks in RTA bus fashion. We appreciate him on Valentine's Day and thank him for his continuous support of our services. Shameless plug.
But the question is, am I still number one? Of course. All right. Sorry, Jonathan, you're number two.
Thank you.
All right. I once had a professor that said if you do not smile or laugh through a day, then that's not been a good day. So we had a little smiling and a little laughter at our board meeting today. That's good. All right, anything else? We have a motion to
Move approval, Valerie.
second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you very much. Is there any other business to come before the committee of the whole today? If not, we have a motion to adjourn.
Just one item.
Oh, sorry.
I know that internal audit has asked for the board's input relative to the risk-based internal audit plan. So if you have not completed that or have comments for Tony and his team, written, I'm sure verbal is fine as well. Please consider that.
Very good. Thank you. Very good, Chairman. Anything else before us today? If not, may we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Valerie.
Second? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Consider ourselves adjourned until next time. The Lord bless, keep you. Happy Valentine's Day.